Hello, and welcome to another Rambling with Jamster. Um, you know, my intros, I feel like they just don't. The problem with my intro is it doesn't roll onto anything. It's like, I don't ever. That was loud. It's a little bit windy today, so I guess some doors are just choosing to just slam shut. That was okay. I don't know if you actually heard that, but that was just a door slamming shut, pretty much. So I'm trying to record these during the day now, because if you haven't noticed, you can see over here window, and it's daylight out there. It's amazing. But the thing is, like, I typically record at night, and that has a impact on how much I can talk in terms of like loudness and in order to not piss off other people. Basically, I have to speak quieter. Whereas during the day, no one's home for the most part, so I can kind of like get away with being loud and obnoxious. So yeah, similar things with other recording as well. Like, I'm gonna aim to try and record most content from now on during the day. Barring some things like city skylines, since it's only the like part where I talk over what I was attempting to do. There's not a whole lot of me needing to actually like worry about when I'm recording. So, like, I've been recording a fair chunk of that. Hopefully, we'll see an episode for that out next week. As of right now, I have begun editing my first Civ series, which I was talking about last time. I got busy last week, and all my plans went out the window. So yeah, but hopefully I get that done. That probably be out in the next couple of days. The good news is, probably within the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I should have NBN at this place where I record all my content. So we are likely gonna get a pretty, like, my stepdad, he's got to have the best of everything pretty much. So it looks like we'll be getting the NBN's a bit crap. I don't know, like, if you're not Australian you wouldn't understand, but the speed you get, it's like this. The whole point of it was to improve Australia's internet, and the way they did that is by basically just upgrading Australia to fibre optic, which most countries are already on and have been on for, like, I don't know, 20 years or something like that. Like, it's a pretty old tech at this point. Australia just hasn't had it, and the main reason is purely being that we're a country, like, Australia is essentially the size of the United States of America, maybe a little bit smaller, maybe a little bit bigger. I don't really know, but I know it's like roughly the same size. But the population difference is just gigantic. Like, we have roughly 23 million people, maybe a bit more, and America's got like 300 million. And it's just that population difference is the reason we've never invested in something like NBN, because, I mean, no one knew the internet was going to be so powerful and such a good thing to have. And given the population size and how big the country actually is, it's just one of those things that has never been a priority. It's just so expensive, but now it's happening, and it's like, cool. And then you find out that it's actually kind of shit. The speed that you get from it, for most people who live in a city, and we're not talking about regional people, if you're further out, like out of the city, even if you're just a few kilometers out of the city where some of my friends live, like, they get pretty bad internet. They will get better internet. They will get much better than what they're currently getting. But if you live closer to the city, where I sort of live, and I'm still not in a city, it's actually really bad. It's even worse if you're in the city, because the standard plan, which is roughly the same price as this sort of plan we pay for now, is worse. Like, they throttle the speed to lower it, just so that apparently it's because everyone on average should be getting the same speeds. I think it's going to be 25 megabits download, 5 megabits upload. That's the standard, right? That's what they want to go for. Whereas, I think it's megabits. Whatever the sort of normal numbers are, I can't be bothered. I know it's not megabytes. It's definitely bits, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so that's the standard, right? And we're currently, we're on a cable. So we got cable in this suburb. And that means we get 35 megabits download, which is still, it's not a whole lot, but we get on average about 30, and it's because you generally don't hit that top number. And it's why would you want to pay the exact same amount for worse internet speed? Even if it's not that much, it's kind of it's a bit dodgy, and then it turns out that some point next year, everyone has to move on to the NBN. They're removing they're doing some, and it's just no more of whatever you previously had. So it's kind of the only way to get the same speed or better is to pay, I think it's an extra $20 on the standard NBN plan, and you can get they call it a speed boost, but what it really is they're just not throttling you as much, so you can get better speeds. So it's a bit bullshit. The way they describe it, they should really just describe it as, we're slowing you down a little bit less, and we're not slowing you down. That's their sort of 3 plans. It's not speed boost and then better speed boost. It's just not what it is. Anyone who understands how it works knows that it's not that. And it's just, but because they call it a speed boost, people are going to be yeah, I can pay more and I can get a speed boost. You can't make things faster, especially light. It uses light, for God's sakes. You don't make that faster. All they do is make it so they can send, that you can send and receive bigger bigger chunks of packets. You don't have that limitation that they're sending you. And that's where it sort of comes down to where I think it's bullshit. It's just absolute crap. And then on top of that, it turns out that companies for the past 20 years in Australia have been paying a lot of money. We're talking 10 grand a month to have essentially the same fucking thing that now is just becoming an Australia-wide thing. But they're not allowed. So the same companies who provide NBN, right? Oh, jeez, my hair is just terrible. The same companies who provide NBN. So there's Australia's government is building it through and they've made a sub-company called NBN Co. Or a company that handles it. I don't know how that works. I mean, NBN Co. seems to be government-owned, but also its own company. I don't understand. But anyway, point is that they're handling the construction of all the fibre optic lines, and the goal is to really get fibre optic to the node, which, pretty close, I guess. And then from the node to homes will be copper, or whatever was there beforehand. In our case, we get cable or coaxial cable, which is just essentially better copper cable. I think it's something it's, instead of just being a single copper line, it's kind of multiple copper lines or something like that. I don't know exactly the details on it, but I do know it's better than the standard copper cable. And the issue just sort of boils down to that the government hasn't regulated what exactly the ISPs can actually do in terms of providing the service. People will be happy, yes, because they're getting a better speed, right? They're going to be happy that some people will, I should say. And then other people are going to be really disappointed and have to pay more money, and it's going to be well, maybe. And some people will try and justify it as that's to pay back for the NBN. But the issue is that we're paying for the NBN through taxes, not through the companies. The companies, I assume, probably have to pay the government as well just to use it. But unless the fees are that extreme, it's sort of, I don't fully understand it. But the fact that it's more expensive in general and it doesn't provide better speeds for most people, and people will still get the same sort of data caps that they get, it just, overall, it seems like an absolute piece of garbage. it sucks. I think that Australia as a whole needs to just. The thing that bothers me more is it was supposed to be better, and then people voted in a government who's one of their key aspects, especially for getting young people to vote, was to say that we'd get a better, faster, a better NBN, faster, right? That was their goal. And when you do a little bit of research, they were telling us exactly what they'd do. They would just do fiber to the node, and the reason is because it's so much quicker to just put it to the node than rather than put an individual fiber optic line to each individual house in Australia. And that makes sense. It is very, it takes a lot more time to do it fiber to the home. But the previous plan was that. And it wasn't really that much more expensive in the reality of things. It was maybe like $2 billion more to do fiber to the home instead of fiber to the node. And people voted the other government in because they said if they do it cheaper, they'd do it faster. And that was some things that people wanted. And the thing is, it's been like 4 or 5 years since the fucking thing started, and most of Australia still doesn't have it. Like, my suburb just got it, and we're actually like an inner city suburb. And that's crazy. And we're not just in any city. There's not that many cities in Australia, if you're not aware. Most cities are generally the state's capital. Queensland's one of the few states, I believe, that has a lot of cities. It's got like 3 or 4 in southeast Queensland. It's got Gold Coast, Brisbane, Springfield, and Ipswich. Although Springfield and Ipswich are quite small. I suppose there's also Toowoomba. There's like 5 cities in a very small region. A couple of those are far smaller, but they're still considered cities, I guess. And then we got one all the way up, a couple up north. There's Cairns, which is, again, not a really big city, but it's still a city. And then the other states, they generally don't have that. They have one big city like Sydney, and then maybe a couple small ones. Like, I know New South Wales has got Newcastle, but then beyond that, I'm pretty sure it's basically just fairly large towns. Like, they're not called cities for some reason. I don't know why Queensland's ones are called cities in some ways. They are. I don't know if there's some way to classify them as cities, but they're called cities. So, I don't know. I do know that, I guess, but then it's strange. So, like, beyond that, there's some of the places did get NBN so fast, and I also think it's a bit bullshit. Like, some of the places who got NBN first, like, there was a couple suburbs down in Melbourne who got NBN fairly quickly. They were like first in the plans and stuff, whatever. So when they got it, they obviously got fiber to the home. For like the first year and a half or something, I can't remember exactly how long, anyone who got NBN during that time got fiber to the home, right? And they didn't have to pay anything. They pay the regular taxpayers rate, or whatever they have to pay. And the same as everyone else who gets NBN, they basically pay the same tax, right? There's no additional fee because they got fiber to the home, and the government couldn't do that because it'd be bullshit for those people in that way. But at the same time, it's bullshit for everyone else because these people basically just got given, a $600, $700 fucking line straight to their home, whereas the rest of Australia didn't get that. Like, the whole thing is just a load of bullshit. And what makes it worse is, like, the fact that it makes me mad, like, in a lot of ways. It could have been a very amazing and, like, thing that could have really boosted Australia's economy. One of the issues Australia has is really that in terms of internet and, online businesses, you don't really come to Australia to host servers and things like that. You might put local servers in Australia, but that's for Australians. You don't put a server here so that someone, say, in New Zealand can access it, right? You just don't do that. You don't put servers in Australia for other countries to access. In fact, you don't even put servers in Sydney for people in Brisbane to access. You put another server in Brisbane. And granted, that's not that, it's kind of usual for things like that to happen. Especially if you're a big company, you might as well, it's not that expensive to host, small servers for each sort of city and stuff like that. But there are definitely companies and places that don't do that. They don't need to. If I had to guess, I would say companies more like Amazon who aren't, streaming a lot of data. They've got their catalog in their database, but they don't need to have a million fucking servers to make sure that people get perfect access, right? Like, maybe Amazon probably isn't the best because they are such a gigantic company, but you kind of get the point. Like, that you don't need a million servers for certain things, whereas someone like YouTube or Facebook, in some sense, would need a lot of servers to handle the amount of traffic they get. And it's strange. Like, there's things, that's like a small example, but there's lots of things like that. There's like online businesses in general are pretty difficult. Like, Australia's already pretty screwed in that sort of department anyway. It's very hard to grow a company here in Australia and make it grow into an international company without actually just basically moving the company overseas, because you can't produce and ship things at an easy, efficient cost. It's just so expensive. So most companies that I'm aware of that were Australian to begin with either go to the States or go to some other country in Europe somewhere, right? And they grow there. There's very few that, grow in Australia and then sort of become an international company. There's not really any that I can think of. Like, most companies that are really big in Australia are often companies that came from other countries and just sort of secured their footholders. Like, Amazon's coming to Australia soon, which is cool, I guess. I mean, I don't really use it that much because the shipping times has just never been that great. But I mean, if they're as good as everyone sort of makes it out to be, then like the online market in Australia is just dead. But or at least it's never going to be able to compete with Amazon. Like, Amazon just seems like they're just too big. But like, the thing is, like, the problem was, and like, our internet speeds have been like the worst for a couple, 10 years or so, right? Like, even worse. Like, it's probably like 20 years where our internet speed has just been worse than a good portion of countries. In terms of stability, like, our internet is pretty stable. I don't know if other countries that, switched quickly and stuff like that have had issues with stability, but it's one of those things. I feel like it could have been done so much better and handled better. And if it did, it would have just improved a lot of things. Like, we're seeing a somewhat, at least I've noticed that there's a lot more Australian streamers and YouTubers popping up all of a sudden. And it seems the big reason behind that is the NBN. Like, Australians couldn't stream and couldn't, really upload to YouTube prior to, last year and the year before, really. Because that's how it works, right? Like, if you don't have an internet speed that's good enough, yeah. So, it just, I don't know, it feels like there's been markets where Australia just couldn't really tap into, not easily at least. Like, you don't have to pay a lot of money. Like, some of the YouTubers who were successful before the NBN that came out of Australia and stuff like that, they really would have been paying a lot if they wanted better uploads times. Like, if I tried right now to upload a video, like even this one's currently 20 minutes long, it's probably going to be a bit longer, it would take forever, right? It would take me like probably 2 or 3 hours, where if you're in someone with decent internet speeds already, especially upload, then it's maybe like a few hours less. Sorry, that didn't make sense. But you get the point. It'd still be shorter, and that's kind of like, and then it'd be cheaper to pay for better internet in general, I would assume. I've heard that America can be a bit shit when it comes to internet, the limited access to ISPs and stuff like that, whereas Australia is a bit different. We get, basically, we can pick and choose whoever the hell we want to go with, which is great. But beyond that, it's not that great. So yeah. On top of that, we had or let's just move on to another topic, I should say. There were some interesting changes in the Overwatch world, I guess. So we're getting deathmatch mode, which is I'm just currently downloading it right now. It came out today officially. It's been on PTR for a while. It's a lot of fun. There's also some Junkrat changes and stuff, which is pretty cool. It's 2 concussion mines now, which is really useful, but the only annoying thing is the way it works is the first one you throw detonates first, and then the second one you throw. So if you have both down, the first one detonates. It's like first in, first explodes, I guess. So if you have 2 down, then it goes 1, then 2, which I think will be sometimes annoying if you forget that you have a mine down. Like if you put a trap in a mine, you can't use your mine still. I don't know if Blizzard's going to look into maybe changing that, because the whole trap plus mine thing you can't really do at all, ever anyway. And 2 mine charges could have fixed that. Jeez, it's windy out there. I don't know why, but anyway. Then beyond that, there was on PTR right now, they've got some slight D.Va reworks and a somewhat extreme Mercy rework, which I find funny. So Mercy is probably one of my favourite heroes to play. And they just turned her from, okay, she can resurrect 4 people and maybe turn the tide of a game around, right? To, if you have a Mercy on your team and she's good and you're good, you win, right? Like, that's what they did to her. She is actually insanely powerful now. People won't see it now because they're just probably too happy to realise she can't just do an instant 4-man res. But she can res 2 people immediately, right? With her ultimate, she has so what they've done is they've moved resurrect as to an ability. She gets that as just a normal ability. It's just got a long cooldown. It's 30 seconds per resurrect. When you use your ultimate, all of your, at least as far as I know, I don't know if it's all, but at least your resurrect resets, so you can use it immediately. So what you can do is res, alt res, so you can get 2 people up straight away. You also get to fly, and your beams connect to, like, basically they just chain. So we're talking Mercy just went from like a little bit OP, maybe, to like, I think she actually is OP. And then on top of that, you can also, the resurrect cooldown whilst you're in ultimate form is down to 10 seconds. So you can res, alt, res, 10 seconds later, res, 10 seconds later, res. And I think the ultimate lasts 20 seconds. And if you get that second res off quick enough, your cooldown is still 10 seconds. So that's the important thing to understand. It doesn't go from 10 and then jump back up to 30. It stays at 10. So then you can get another res. So in the space of 30 seconds, you can get a 4-man res. And then in the space of a minute, you can get a 5-man res. It favours Mercies, though, that do prefer to stay in the team fight and stuff, which is something I did already. I'd only ever, like, try and back out and hide behind a corner if, like, you know, the Zarya was suddenly aggressively positioning and I felt like they were going to ultimate or use a lot of ultimates. I would stay in a team fight until the very, like, sort of, I think I need to make sure I'm in a safe spot kind of moment. And the decision making on Mercy has always been an extremely tough and sort of difficult process. It's not something you can just you can't just out of the blue, like, resurrect, right? It was always an interesting one to me, and now they've changed it in a way that I think they've actually changed the whole dynamic in a sense that it's easier to decide to res, especially if you go into an attack a point, right, and teammates start dying. Let's say you're Reinhardt, he gets stunned or something, or gets hacked by Sombra, his shield's down, and then he gets focused and dies. You know, that would be basically a team push ended, right? With the Mercy cooldown right now, I hope they change it, but right now she spawns, it's off cooldown. So what she can do, instantly res. The first fight on any point, someone is coming back up, right? And it's not that, it doesn't seem that powerful, but if you get a pick and, maybe it was like a trade, like, your soldier traded with their Reinhardt to get a kill, or something like that. If you don't have a Mercy and the enemy team does, and they resurrect their Reinhardt, you're fucked. Unless you're, like, super good, it's just, you're going to lose that fight, which means it's going to be very easy, at least in my mind, it's going to be very easy to cap points and things. Like, it's actually more valuable for your tank to just really be aggressive, die, maybe get a kill, and then just resurrect that tank, right? Or even just a soldier or anyone, just if they can get a trade, you can just resurrect, and then that trade becomes useless for the enemy team. Like, you can keep pushing. So it's kind of, it goes from, it just changes the dynamic a bit, like, but I think it just benefits Mercy in so many more ways than people realize at the moment. Like, a trade, if you have Mercy in the first team fight, will likely win you it, right? Because Mercy just reses. Unless something goes wrong, of course, you trade, and then, like, let's say your Reinhardt dies, and then afterwards, you just suddenly start losing people left, right, whatever. It's just insane. I just think the overall abilities and things like that, her ultimate is also quite crazy, like the fact that you can fly your beams chain. I don't really think the flying thing's honestly that useful, but maybe because people are retarded and can't shoot flying things, it might just be useful anyway. Seriously, I don't know what it is. If there is something that can fly, Overwatch players will manage to miss it. It is just, it's amazing how good they are at missing sometimes. Like, it's so, I don't even know how you did that kind of thing. Like, how can you not shoot that thing? And the lack of focus and game awareness is just insane. Players in general just, but I think people are gonna genuinely hate the new Mercy. I think they don't see it yet because it's only on PTR, and the problem is on PTR, like, I've tried to have a go at Mercy in an actual game, and, like, every bloody time someone picks her, like, they insta-lock her, I'll go and have a look at their profile, and it's someone who's never bloody played the hero. They don't play her, they don't know who the fuck she is, pretty much. They've just, like, never touched a support, and it's like, why are you trying a hero? Like, if you wanted to see how they played, then let someone else play it. Like, because you're not going to fucking play it, clearly. Maybe they're just trying to see if they like the new Mercy, but it just, I don't know. It bothered me. Like, I had that happen multiple times. I also had that happen with I tried to play D.Va, and there were multiple people who just were trying out the new D.Va. And it's just like, but you haven't played a tank, let alone D.Va, like, for more than 10 minutes. Why are you trying D.Va? And I know that the PTR stats are, like, maybe a month or so out of date, but seriously, like, it was that extreme where it was kind of like, these are players who have got, like, 10 minutes on this hero. I doubt they've got much more beyond that. Maybe they suddenly liked Mercy and they started playing it for, like, now they've got 10 hours on it. That might be reasonable, but it wasn't. It just doesn't feel like that, and it was kind of like, why? Why are you doing that? Like, it just, like, I don't know. I mean, the other cool things is Deathmatch, and there's other interesting things coming our way, like the new Junkertown map should be here, or at least on PTR soon. I think it'll be on PTR next week, because I don't think it's on this week's PTR. Actually, I can check. I've got Overwatch open. That's not what I want. I want to look at PTR. PTR patch notes. Junkertown is on PTR right now. So if you are an Overwatch fan and you want to try out Junkertown, that is there. That's pretty cool. There's also obviously the hero changes, Mercy and D.Va's changes are still there. The Junkrat and Roadhog ones are now on live, as well as a few other small ones, like I think Widowmaker got a slight buff where her hook cooldown was reduced. But beyond that, I don't think there's much else that's been changed. Obviously, Deathmatch is on live as well. So, yeah, I've been Jamster, and I'll see you guys next time.